Hey everybody, welcome to a very special episode of Future Fuzz, the digital marketing podcast with a B2B focus. That's right, this is episode number 100. We finally done it, and it's all thanks to you. So I'd like to say a very, very big thank you to everyone that tunes into the podcast on a regular basis, and also all the new people that tune in to the episodes with some amazing guests. So throughout 100 episodes, I've learned a huge amount. It started a couple of years ago in Utrecht, where I had a little box office and the coffee machine went off in the background, so that went wrong. And then there are many other episodes where things went wrong, but each time, hopefully the podcast has got better and better and better, and hopefully you've enjoyed listening to some of these amazing episodes. A few highlights along the way have been Andy Crestadina from Orbit Media. He came on the podcast twice. Check out his latest podcast, absolutely brilliant. Jochen van der Veer from They Do, who's doing some amazing things in CX with their platform. Check them out, theydo.com. Also Tom Byrne from PMG, formerly Rocket Mill. His podcast absolutely took off. That was amazing. And if you want to have a laugh, check out the podcast from Chris J. Reed, who talks about how to be a rock star on LinkedIn. Also absolutely brilliant. There are so many more episodes, of course. In the 100 episodes of Future Fuzz, I've interviewed 99 different people. It's been an amazing networking exercise, and it's been absolutely brilliant for business and also helpful to others, hopefully, who I've made connections with and shared some great advice. So once again, thank you very much for tuning in to all of the episodes. This is episode 100. Let's get to 200. Very excited about the next part of the Future Fuzz journey. And in this particular episode, I speak to the brilliant Marcus from Tommy, which is a fantastic digital and creative agency based out in London, Singapore, global now. Really great chat. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in. Hey everyone, welcome to Future Fuzz, the digital marketing podcast. I'm joined today by Marcus, the co-founder of Tommy, a digital creative studio that works with the world's leading brands from their offices in London, LA, and Singapore. Tommy's clients include Netflix, TikTok, YouTube, Amazon Prime, Paramount Pictures, Google, and Tottenham Hotspur. It's quite a list, isn't it? And having worked in Hollywood for some time in the ever-changing marketing environment for the last 15 years, Marcus has become an expert in understanding why distinctiveness is absolutely critical to building brilliant brands. His agency, Tommy, has launched the Distinctiveness framework, which we'll dive into today, the only framework of its kind of measuring distinctiveness in advertising. Its foundations are in the academic and behavioral field, cognitive neuroscience studies, and investigates the impact of distinctiveness on memory with EEG. Wow, what an intro. Marcus from Tommy, thank you very much for joining the podcast today.
Thank you so much, Justin. I'm really looking forward to chatting today. And wow, that sounds really good, doesn't it? There's only downhill from here, right? But we'll try my best, I promise.
It's only downhill. First of all, tell us about the story of Tommy. How did you get started? When did you get started? What's the background there?
So I started in digital about 25 years ago. And as I like to say, in dog years means I'm dead, right? So it's a long time in digital. I know, Justin, you said you had a background in digital as well. And got drawn into digital marketing. I was working at a big IPG group, Universal McCann, with a digital innovator, and kind of just fell into the digital industry and met my two partners about 15 years ago working at another agency, and we're like, look, let's set our own thing up. We approached a couple of people. We approached Paramount Pictures and they gave us a project. They said, look, you can work on a Marvel title. We've got 2 coming in. It's the first ever. If you mess it up, you'll never work with us again. But if you don't, great. And they offered us Iron Man and another title. Like, look, let's not do Iron Man. That's massive. We'll do the smaller one. Won't be greedy. We'll deliver that. And we just started the agency off there 15 years ago. We set ourselves up in a great PR agency called Kazoo. And we offered our digital expertise, in essence, 15 years ago, the 3 of us. Like, if you give us a bit of office space, you'll have on hand some really good digital experts of what we like to think of ourselves as. And that's kind of how we got rolling, really. And just, built really good agency partnerships that brought a lot of work in. And I think still to this day, it's kind of how we think a lot about business development, new business partnerships, building brilliant relationships is probably still the key of what we do.
Fantastic. And you're still working with Paramount to this day, aren't you?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, now more Paramount Plus. So obviously, it's been really interesting to talk about working with the Hollywood studios for years, which we have, seeing the sort of emergence of Netflix and which, and the streamers, which sort of destroyed half our business in some ways because the marketing budgets all changed in the major studios and they had to have a big rethink.
Right.
They've sort of brought in the Netflixes and the Amazon Primes and worked with HBO Plus and Disney Plus. So it's quite interesting in our entertainment industry. They like you to have lots of entertainment experience. They don't mind you working with the other streamers and their competitors, unlike other brands categories, right? So they're, that's a tick off. No, you can't work with us. It's kind of a positive. And I think that's sort of shaped what we do in terms of us as an agency and what we'll talk about a bit later around distinctiveness. Entertainment marketing has always been that thing about grabbing people's attention, building a franchise and attention for something really rapidly. So it's not slow global brand building. It's like you got to land this thing. You want people to download or view a trailer or buy tickets, and it's quite intense. But it's storytelling, it's entertainment, it's what audiences love, right? So it's a great space to be in, and it's allowed us to be very, very innovative and talk about innovation and how we've used technology and platforms and social channels in really interesting ways. And entertainment clients have always just really, really been up for doing something new, interesting, something that's not been done before, sometimes without too much sort of rationalization and things like that, which is brilliant. So it's been an exciting space to be for 15, 20 years.
That's a great thing about the entertainment space, like you say, is that they need to grab people's attention because it's an interesting service, isn't it? You are trying to entertain someone, and you basically have to feed their brain, right?
Yeah,
and tap into some emotions. I feel like car advertising is more and more like that now. Is that you're not buying a car, you're buying a dream, aren't you?
Yeah,
you're buying the badge of what you're driving. It's not necessarily the fact that it's got this many speakers or the tires are this good or what have you. The specs are nice, but you're buying into the dream.
Yeah,
and then in order for entertainment brands and any brands you work with to really stand out, you really are drilling into this idea of distinctiveness. And been working on that for a long time.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between being distinctive in your advertising and then being different?
Yeah, it's a good question, and sort of the step before we go into the distinctiveness is working with the entertainment clients. We sort of decided a few years ago, what is it that we do in terms of our framework, and what is it that really, we were always obsessed about being distinctive. We always have been. We've always wanted to cut through, disrupt, all those tactics. And that's where we sort of went and did some research on this. And we'll go into the framework afterwards and some of the neuroscience research, and the audience might be interested in that. But, it's quite interesting. We get asked that question, what's the difference between being distinctive and being different, right? Well, being different in being distinctive, different is only one part of distinctiveness. And it's, distinctiveness is, it's only, it's quite multi-layered. It's very nuanced by category, by your competitor set, by audience types. So it's multi-layered because it doesn't simply focus on differentiation. It encompasses elements of like newness, the ability to create deeper emotional connection, engage audiences. And it's nuanced because those deeper emotional connections or relevance have more subtle and complex qualities than simply just being different. And sometimes, this sort of bends people's minds. Sometimes being different is not always a positive, because being so different can also have its problems, which I'll get into a bit later.
Right. Okay. So can we use an example? Let's say there's a company trying to promote a new movie or a new series. Is there any in the framework before any, let's say, ideas get put forward or before there's any pen to paper? What are you talking to the client about?
So I suppose I'll give you an example. We work with the big lots of beauty brands. We're a TikTok partner, but we work directly with a couple of big holding companies. And I did an inspiration session with the marketing teams from a number of brands. And I put up 12 influencers, 12 different brands, and I pressed play. And I said, and we watched the timing, literally the way they held the product up when they started applying the music, the tone, the pace, the camera angle, the shot, exactly the same, right?
Yeah.
And literally to the T, to the 10 seconds to 20 seconds. So I said, when I talk to people about the beauty industry, I marvel at it because you're brilliant. You do some brilliant social media. When you hold each other up against each other, you might have issues that's not driving memorability. Right. When you went to the next slide, it's like, well, how many of those 12 brands do you now remember? Because the content was exactly the same.
Were they almost identical?
Identical. Literally, it's a product type. It's one of the category codes that they need to do, what it, and how to use the product. Then I did another one. So just to sort of hammer home, I said, a beauty influencer walks into a store. What happens next? It's like nothing you haven't seen 1,000 times. Press play. I had 12 different beauty influencers, the number of brands walking into. I did the UK market. It was a UK team, like walking into Tesco, Sainsbury's, Superdrug, Boots.
Yes.
They're standing outside. They walk in, timing, same pace. They find the product. They hold the product up, which is great. So part of the marketing mix is that we're now being stocked on shelves here. We're doing that, but it's all the same. So it's really interesting, how that lack of distinctiveness then is like, right, this is what you're all doing, and they're like, okay, we see that now. That's not to say those pieces of content aren't important. We get it. But you still have to think about how you're going to drive memorability when you invest your marketing budgets for the stuff that we're going to do with you. How are we going to stand out and do something that's kind of like TikTok friendly, is really truly going to stand you out in the product scape? Do something if you're doing an experience or turning up in the real world that's going to grab attention and entertain people and do the things that you want to do. So, and then I think, I originally started working with the whiskey brand, the beauty brands, because I worked with Häagen-Dazs, and I got brought into a whiskey brand, and I put about 90 whiskey posts up originally. And I said, it's 20 different brands, and it just all looked the same. The Oak Cask, the Roaring Fires, the Glasses, the Highlands, the Lowlands.
Yeah.
The smouldering Scottish VOs, the like smugglers that come over.
Yeah.
You just all look the same. Christ, No, I get it. You've got to say
you're a whiskey
brand.
Yeah.
You're a drink. There's things you've got to tick off.
And you're from Scotland.
Time.
Yeah.
But if you all look the same, that's a problem. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of where we always start. We always try and like hold up and have a look at where when I said it's nuanced and quite contextual.
Yeah.
If I was showing some of the stuff that we do in beauty across into whiskey, we're like, you should do this.
Should do the whiskey. Yeah. You flip it over. Yeah. Just flip them around. Yeah. Again.
It's a conflict in places. Yeah. That's where the expertise comes in, right?
Yeah.
Or whether the framework we'll talk about later helps people understand between the brands and our agencies, how to guide the thinking around distinctiveness and understanding what are the areas that we can drive distinctiveness. Because I'll give you another example. I held up the gin category, right? So you're a British guy, Justin, and I know you're in Amsterdam for years, but hey, we love a gin and tonic here in the UK, don't we?
Right, yeah.
And our parents did. So it's been the explosion of gin, and I love the gin. It's brilliant. There's there's been thousands of variants coming in. But when you start looking at them, they're all so different, right? And they've got these incredible brand worlds and floral scapes and design, and it's great. But the problem is it creating a choice paralysis because there's too much choice.
Too much choice, indeed.
So we're in that specific category in gin. There's either a lot of that too much flavor, too much branding. This hunger starts to morph into one, a bit like craft beers, which I love the package design, but which ones do you remember? And when I talk to them, one of my favorite examples, people have a look up Engine Gin. If you have a look at their Instagram feed later, and Engine Gin is a brand that's sort of like really breaking the category mold. First of all, it's delivered in a sort of recycled oil can, like a proper motorsport oil vessel, inspired by the world of racing, right? And they've created this sort of entire online universe that's quite sort of 80s video game, and certainly like pushes beyond the regular expectations of gin. Yeah. And then secondly, they've got this really distinct brand world, right? And what you talk about, like firing across the senses. When you see this stuff, I remember seeing it and sending it to my creative partners, like, wow, look at this. I think it's a gin brand. Like, it's amazing. And then you got this juxtaposition of 80s masculine man meets modern Italian sass young women, and it's kind of, it's just like, whoa, this,
Well, it's memorable, isn't it? Because you're talking about it, and it's really hit home to you. Yeah. So we had a guest on the podcast quite some time back. She was at Neft vodka, Neft vodka, and if I'm not mistaken, that was in a barrel.
Nice.
that was in like an oil barrel, like a very glitzy one. And they were targeting, I think, mostly the US market and being very successful with it.
Yeah.
Very memorable.
Yeah.
And very much targeted towards female audience. And then you were reminding me as well about a vodka brand from Slovakia, and I've forgotten their name, but the packaging and the story behind it was incredible. So they say it was based on winter wheat, and I'll never forget that. Like winter wheat vodka, that's very standout.
Yeah.
And the bottle looked like a tombstone.
Yeah.
Absolutely huge. But you're right. These brands, they need to stick out, and you hit the nail on the head with the craft breweries. I mean, I'm thinking about Beavertown Brewery at the moment because I love the name Beavertown Brewery. I think it's a fantastic name.
Yeah.
But there are hundreds of others out there which I can't recall.
My friends, I mean, I'm a classic lager drinker, but my friends, there's so many friends with the craft beers, and they always turn up with like 20 different new variants. Like,
Right.
That's brilliant.
But it's choice paralysis, right?
Yeah, choice paralysis. And then where's the loyalty, and where's the customer, and where's the build of those brands?
Yeah.
Like now you're getting people to repeat buy, and so that's the and yet they've got some of the best design, best names, best conventions, and if you're into craft beer, best multiple tasting type of variants, right? So they've got everything, but yet they've got nothing in some ways, which is quite a challenge for brands, especially I think innovation brands and young startup brands trying to come into the market and
desperately
category and do something interesting. I've made a note of Neft, so that'll be one of
I'll send you the link. It'll be in the show notes as well.
Future Fuzz is sponsored by SalesSource, B2B pipeline management and sales growth for your business.
So let's talk about neuroscience here as well.
Yeah.
So what does EEG research tell us about how we remember brands? And maybe you can explain to the listeners what EEG research is.
Yeah, so obviously it's measuring brain brain responses. So we sort of set about a year and a half ago to sort of look at distinctiveness and how do you measure. We unraveled some brand new academic research, was the latest neuroscience research on distinctiveness, and basically it was kind of measured used brainwave responses. What they said is there's four main sources of distinctiveness, which is one, I'll just get these right, hold on, I've got them written down. Deviance from context. So if it stands out from a set, it can make an episode distinctive.
Right.
Next one, infrequency in lifetime. So no similar or existing representation in long-term memory. Third one, emotional significance. So if you provoke an emotional reaction. And then the fourth one was relevance, which is obvious. It's like relevant and high priority makes it distinctive. So all four types of distinctiveness have been shown to make an event more memorable, and even more memorable if you have more than one. So if you're relevant and different, then you're really, really indexing quite high. And so it's the reason you measure it is like, it's all about the formation of new memories, right? So the cognitive energy spent processing something that delivers an emotional response and supports memory encoding that can impact future actions and decisions. So as you said, you remember the Tombstone vodka, you probably never forget that now, will you, as an example? It'll always be ingrained.
Yeah.
It made you think, it's like, well, what is that? And you had to, your cognitive, the cogs were turning in your brain, right? And you have the response to that. You can't not respond to something like that. You can't turn that response off. So, it's really interesting as a marketeers, I think we have a duty to think about how we exercise the brain of the consumer. Because if you exercise the brain of the consumer, you're then becoming memorable. So you go back to the beauty example. If I've seen something 1,000 times, I dismiss it quickly. I can't help it. My brain, my cognitive load every day, I'm overloaded. We're all overloaded. We haven't got the cognitive space. So if I've seen something, I can say, oh, yeah, understand that, go on, move. Don't necessarily remember it. So when you see something you have to figure out, and something that twists and makes you go, oh my God, yes, and what is that? And the emotion is a fundamental part of storytelling.
Right.
And it knocks down your defenses and it floods you with hormones, right? And your brain gets going. And those change the way you might perceive something or see something. So that's kind of where the academic studies came from. We were fascinated by that. That's how we developed the distinctiveness framework from there.
Can marketers then, let's say, try and engineer memorability? Is there a blueprint? Or is there a bit of magic dust always?
Yeah, I think we can talk about some strategies later, but yes, you can. And I don't know if you remember a book, it's a very design community book, but it's called Smile in the Mind. I'll give that an example. And Smile in the Mind is about that 75-25% rule. So if you give someone some 75%, very classic creative, and have to make a connection with the picture, what they're looking at, they go, and have that penny drop, it makes a smile in the mind. It's
Right.
And I'll give you a really good example. So there was a great outdoor billboard I saw the other day when I was on the tube. It's from Wilkinson's Sword, and it said, "A razor with quite a good blade is like an acrobat with quite a good grip." I'm like, when the penny drops, you're like, yeah, I don't want to cut my face. Everyone would, you're an acrobat slipping, and you're thinking, right?
Yeah.
And it is contextual. I was sitting on the train. I had time to think about it. That is like, absolutely, that's engineering memorability, right? It's thinking about, as a duty, how do I exercise the brain of the consumer? Don't just give them something, make them make a connection to it. Like, Nike do this really well. I always show up Nike running, and they have some content they put in there sometimes, like, stop scrolling, you could be running. And you're like, now you're on social feed, you're going like mad, right? You're nailed. It's like, they just capture that moment, you go, So that penny drop is the smile in the mind that triggers something that's really sort of memorable. So that you can in multiple ways, like engine gin. We talked about that, the distinction of it, and there's multiple ways of engineering that, and there's actually that's why we put structure around how you can think about doing that, and then the strategies you can think about in the long term to build distinctive brands and distinctive marketing.
Brilliant. I'm just curious, because we're talking about a lot of established brands here. What could an emerging brand do to rock the boat, and what can an established brand do to try and not necessarily reinvent themselves, but to remain engaging?
Yeah, I think for me, so there's the elements of what makes something distinctive, and I can talk in a bit more depth about these later, but the idea of these distinct brand worlds, the rule of law, you'll see a lot of the strategies talking about your playbook and your story world and those things. Right? So, you think about liquid death, that's like indexing really high because it's like it's a punch in the face of the water category, right? And it's the I was going to swear, then I won't. So what
you're allowed to. Future Fuzz, you're allowed to. Very well.
The water industry, right? Like, it's a proper poke in the eye, but it's doing everything that's truly distinctive. And I'll give you an example, because I was looking at a lot of the hydration brands and life optimization that goes on at the moment that we're marketed to. Right? There's something for every moment and day of our life, what we should be eating, what we should be drinking, sachets we could be pouring in, how we should be, exercising, memory encoding, doing those things. So the CBD market's really interesting, all the drinks. And the one that stand out for me of all the new entrants in that life optimization categories is Trip drinks, right? And it really explodes.
Yeah.
And what I love, why they're head and shoulders above everyone else in that category, is because it's calm in a can, right?
Calm in a can. Yeah.
Everything they do is synonymous with calm, everything. And that is the foundation for everything they do. So as an innovation brand, they've super honed in on one thing, calm in the can. And everything they do, they build out from there. And then, whereas others in CBD talk about relaxation and talk about all the equities that you have in that category, they're talking about it in exactly the same way. Whereas Trip been really clever. They've been really, really clever about the way they've marketed, used colour as an IP originally, used that calm in a can. So everything that they do is the springboard. That's the springboard into their distinctiveness. And it's like, I think I was thinking about a great screenplay, and you create a world where you consider everything, and every story, every potential sort of juxtaposition, everything is an embodiment of that world, and tie it tightly together. And Calm, Trip do that really, really well. And go and look at their growth. It's in phenomenal growth now they've got. And then another way is, like, think about it, it's like, one of like multiple brands I love is like McDonald's, an established brand, right? And how they use distinctiveness, because I love the way they use their golden arches, right? It's so distinctive and recognizable. We understand it because it's years marketing, like we understand Coca-Cola, those brands. But one of the examples I always give is the out-of-home work they do, where they use the arches, but they cut off part of the golden arch, and it's like on the motorway, next left or next right, and they
use the arch,
just that bit, and it's McDonald's, and you get it, right? That's a value exchange. Again, they're using that sort of memory encode. They're driving the memory. They're engaging the brain. So, there's big brands, global brands, who are doing really, really well at delivering distinctive marketing. Absolutely, right across contexture, across the board, on multiple touch points, right? At the time that it needs to, for brand building and for memory encoding and for those things, they do it really, really well. So there is no difference. I think some of the innovation brands are the ones who are showing us the way. because they're kind of a bit fearless, right?
Well, they are fearless. Yeah, they're breaking the rules, aren't they? There's no rule book, right? Yeah. They're always the best to watch. They're always the most fun to watch.
Yeah, and as you said, like the Tombstone vodka is like, what I'm seeing in that category, from travel brands to CBD products, like, wow, it's just incredible. And then another one, for anyone who works in travel, we know those sort of like the travel industry, like the accessories and the bags and it's like his influencers looking off to far-flung places and overlooking mountainscapes. And it's like, you've seen those images 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Go and have a look at anyone who's got an Instagram feed. Go and have a look at Lujo Hotel, Lujo Hotel, right? I mean, that's completely disrupting the category. It's Wes Anderson with sun cream, this thing, right? And it's like art meets travel, and this is hotel and their work. I thought it was a Wes Anderson trailer when I first watched it.
Right. And is it one hotel?
It's one hotel. It's a hotel. But have a look at their Instagram. It's in Turkey, in Bodrum.
Right.
People go there and also got the DJs out there. It's culturally, and it's where luxury meets art, meets culture, music.
Oh, wow.
But they are a Wes Anderson movie. Every single shot, content, the space, the place.
Yeah.
It's like being in a Wes Anderson film.
Fantastic.
And everything is bought into that. It's just wonderful. So like, it just changes the way you think about travel. You're like, oh,
that sounds like my kind of hotel. And I've been to Bodrum before, but I don't think that hotel was open when I went to Bodrum.
Have a look at Instagram feed later.
Lujo Hotel.
Lujo Hotel, absolute genius. And I'm not on a commission for
it. So are there any mistakes that brands are making, do you feel? Have you seen mistakes happening? You don't have to name any names, but maybe there's something that's jumped out to you where you thought, if I were you, I shouldn't have done that. Yeah,
I think that's, it's really interesting sort of point to make to brands. Like I think there's a few, but there's two I always think of. One, it's probably something I was talking about a bit earlier. Beware of the social playbook in your category, right? Because like it's all about social, it's all about going in and doing the content. And like, if you play by the rules and the content rules,
right,
then you're playing by the rules, you're conforming. And if you're conforming, that leads us to the same place and the same outcomes.
Yeah,
that's a risk, because you're told how the algorithm works and how the data works and how the influencer should work, and you're told that, but it does start to all look the same as that beauty example we gave. So you've got to be wary of that in your social playbook categories. So you either use the equities, but you play around with them. Like we did a whiskey brand after showing them why all whiskey looks the same. We worked on a whiskey brand called Airstone. And the first image, you got the guy, the earnest guy, the beautiful beard, the Shoreditch type, holding the whiskey. And he's like, sorry, Justin, I know you got a beautiful beard there as well. So, and he's like, so looking like that earnest about to have his whiskey. And you're like, you don't need to be this serious to drink our whiskey. And so it's like, it's a moment of entertainment. It's like, you sort of get it, right? Because, like all that marketing is like that. And it's like, and it really hits the audience. So you can use in your playbook the same category codes and conventions. You've just got to think about how you use them in your own unique way that drives memorability to you. And the second one is committed behaviors. And I think, this really came to the fore for me, when with last year with all the big debate around CGI and fake out of home. It's like, at the end of the day, good content is good content. Doesn't really matter how it's made.
Doesn't matter how it's made.
Because he made motion graphics for years. It's not about that. It's like, is it good enough to entertain someone? Yes or no, right? Yeah. And I think North Face, and so I'm a big North Face fan. Of course we are in the creative industries, and if you do content shoots and things, you love your big North Face jacket, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay, for Patagonia myself, but yeah, okay. I'm listening.
They did a stunt on, well, it was a CGI fake stunt on Big Ben, and they covered Big Ben
right
with a North Face jacket. Great. Okay, nice bit of content.
Smart.
But it's like random. Because it's like it's land and abandon. It's done. They don't commit to that behavior.
Do you feel that was a bit of a wasted opportunity? It was a bit random. Do you?
It's random in the sense of I love it and I love the bravery of it in some ways. But then like do more. Just haven't committed to the behavior. So like what's one of the favorite fashion brands is Jacquemus, is like the master at storytelling and Alice in Wonderland storytelling. That is committed behavior to being distinctive at every single turn. They always surprise you. They're always driven. And being distinct, like this is the truth. Being distinctive is exhausting because it's a constant endeavor. There's no destination to being distinctive. It's a never-ending journey. You've got to just keep going. So you have to commit to those behaviors. That's a common mistake. If you don't commit to the behavior, it's not about a one-off stunt and a one-off thing.
Right.
Commit to that behavior. If you're doing a one-off stunt because you want to try and attract a specific audience, then what are you going to do to follow up? And you mentioned car. marketing like earlier. And someone I know who works in, automotive for years, they call it land and abandon for years.
Land and abandon
car. And then they abandon the audience because they just got to move on to the next.
They got to move on to the next one. Yeah, I did some work for Yamaha Motor Europe for a while, and it did certainly feel like that. It felt like they were talking more and more about the bikes that were coming than the things that were actually there on the market that people could readily get their hands onto. Yeah, it was absolutely amazing. But you've just reminded me about I don't fly with Ryanair as a principle. But you've got to say, like, their marketing is bullish and they're not afraid to ruffle a few feathers because they know their audience. Yeah. Right. And I think Ryanair's a classic example of they're consistently cheeky and they don't really give a crap. And now everybody knows that about Ryanair and, so be it. At least they're consistently bullish, right?
Yeah.
I do think consistency is important.
100%. I mean, that's the point, right? So I think us as an agency, we've always been drawn to distinctive brands and like Netflix this world and like the stuff that we do. When we go work in whiskey, we don't want to go and make you a Highlands shot. We want to do Airstone whiskey and take the mick out of the category, it's just what we're drawn to.
Right. Yeah.
But being distinctive can be in luxury, it can just be beautiful storytelling. It's not just about comedy or entertainment or about those things, It can be whatever those triggers are for your specific audience that's really going to resonate and going to drive emotional connection. But I think it's about, biggest thing about emotional intent. Is one of the big things, about that emotional intent of your content, how you try and turn up,
Fantastic. Well, Marcus, we really try and be consistent and true to our audience here at Future Fuzz. And we know people in Adland and the software world only listen for about 25 minutes. And time flies when you're having fun. So we come to the end of the pod. Marcus, thank you very much for joining the show. Where can people find you? Where can people find Tommy? And where can people find out more information about being distinctive?
So we'll put a link in my LinkedIn, Marcus Foley. I'm on LinkedIn, so you can find me there as the co-founder of Tommy. Our website is thisistommy.com. But reach out to me on LinkedIn, happily to share, and maybe Justin will you can share with the audience. We can put a little framework PDF together so people have a little look at the actual distinctiveness framework and how they can start maybe thinking about it. If you're in the UK, I think I've got a couple of talks coming up at Social Day and Digital Marketing World Forum and place like that where I'll be trialing and showing the framework in action and putting some brands up across categories and how they work and how they don't.
Brilliant. Loads to come in the show notes. Thank you, Marcus, for coming on.
Brilliant. Thank you, Justin. I appreciate your good ears and good questions. A great beard.
Thanks for tuning in and making the choice to listen to this podcast. If you liked what you've heard today, please don't forget to subscribe.